I wanted to write a book about managing conflict because I felt that after 30 years, nearly 30 years of dealing with it day in and day out, both internally and externally, a lot of what I'd learned, or if you like, taken from doing that, I thought would be wasted without sounding arrogant or without trying to sound patronising. I'm a very practical person, but I wanted to sort of put it down because we're always reinventing this wheel and we sort of work in these little silo, very isolated. And I've been asked, you know, as a grievance investigator, what is it that you found worked, what have you found hasn't worked? And I've been asked so many times that I thought, well, why don't we put it in a book? Why I considered this book would be so important is, having worked for nearly 30 years in a huge organisation, the Metropolitan Police, where I managed several teams, what I used to find was the people issues, if you like, or the conflict that used to rear its head between individuals within my teams used to probably cause me more concern sometimes than actually getting the job done, if that makes sense. And sometimes it was like the sword of Damocles hanging over one's head when you went in to work, but you knew that you'd probably spend 70% of your time dealing with people issues. I was managing several very large teams, and I suppose I had about 100 different personalities that were all working extremely closely together. And if you think about it, people spend more time at work with each other than they do with their families and in their own, if you like, more intimate relationships. And that probably is what prompted me to begin to think about, seriously, what can I do to get this down in a book? What I'd learned. Well, Clive and I are quite a strange combination. I say that with real sincerity and humility, that probably if Clive and I had worked together very closely in an office, we may not have even got on, because we're total opposite dichotomies. But that balance and appreciation of each other's ways and understanding has actually helped and has enriched my way of dealing with individuals. Well, the book is a very practical, simple touchstone really for a manager to look at and take from it what is going to be useful for them. It's not a sheep dip approach, but it's suggested tips, scenarios, techniques in how to address behaviours, because nobody can change the behaviour, no manager can, but the manager's attitude can be adjusted and perceptions can be realigned, and that is what the book's all about. It's a very common sense, practical DIY, if you like, toolkit guide in how to navigate through conflict. The experience that I've gained over the years has enabled me to be able to articulate my experiences and what I've found has worked, and also what I've found hasn't worked, what maybe has managed to diffuse the conflict, and I've drawn on my experiences when it's actually escalated. I was a Fairness at Work appeals investigator, which is a grievance appeals investigator, but way before that I found my experience in running the teams as a first contact officer has enabled me to be able to really reflect and then to be able to put that down in a book, what's helped me. My future perfect for the book would be that a manager in an organisation can pick the book up, leaf through it, pick out a part of the book that relates to maybe an issue that they're dealing with at that time, maybe select some of the dialogue, tweak it and change it to suit them so that they can plan for when they have to go in and deal with this conflict situation. And if one manager can get a decent night's sleep and not worry about it, or think, oh, I know, I can look at chapter 6, and if they can use resolve, because it's a fabulous model, even though I say it myself, if they can use that to steer their way through the conflict, then that's what I think the book will have achieved. That's my future perfect. Conflict is a huge issue. I defy and challenge anyone to say that they've not come across conflict within the workplace. It happens every day. Sometimes it's underground, sometimes it's overt, sometimes it's covert. But whatever happens, you bet your bottom dollar there is conflict going on. Now, some of it is healthy, because if you haven't got conflict, you've got complete apathy. So you're bound to have conflict within a team, and may it go on forever. It's when it starts to become sinister. So we're looking more at the conflict that crosses over into that dark side. And it's so important because it causes an awful lot of stress on individuals emotionally. People can become extremely distraught and ill, even to the fact that if they walk into the office they feel sick. But not only that, it's costing businesses a huge amount of money. And if we're talking about, recession and cutbacks, then to me, conflict is the thing that organisations should be looking at, because they can reduce the costs. It costs over 40 billion a year. I was amazed when I found that out. So I'm very passionate about it, because I've actually been in the past a subject where I've been called a bullying manager, and it really hurt me, and I had to really reflect on maybe the way I have managed teams. And it's the other side of the table as well, whereas the aggrieved or the originator is hurting, but so is the person that's often accused of being a bully. So it's all about managing that conflict from both sides. I think all organisations can do better. We can do better at everything, especially conflict. If an organisation says they can't, then I think that organisation really seriously needs to look at what they're doing. All organisations can do better in the fact that they can look more at introducing training at the very initial stages for newly novice managers. You can go from being a member of the workforce one day to being promoted to manager, where you've got your nice little office now, which is at the side, and left to get on with it. We talk about the first 100 days where you can introduce coaching, but what first 100 days do newly promoted managers get when they've got to deal with all these different situations?